Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton, Mary Kate Love with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Mary Kate, how you doing today?
Good. Excited to be talking about efficiency, my favorite topic of all time.
Yes, you certainly have mastered that. You could give
Yeah.
lessons and degrees. And to your
Yes.
point, Mary Kate, great show teed up today. It's really important to call time out and truly rethink how and why we do things across supply chain,
Yep.
across global business, really all the time. And today we're going to be offering up some compelling reasons for why supply chain leaders should rethink their freight auditing. And how
Yep.
about we start, Mary Kate, with saving money, saving time, avoiding costly errors, freeing up your team to do more impactful things instead. Should be a great show, huh?
Who doesn't love that, right?
Oh, no doubt. I'll take two, please, or maybe
Yes.
five, please.
Yes.
So, folks, stay tuned for a great show. Two final reminders before we get started here today. Number one, let us know what you think. Share your comments throughout this live session, very live session. And number two, if you enjoyed today's show, be sure to share it with a friend or your network. They'll be glad you did. Okay, Mary Kate, you ready to get to work?
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to welcome in our two distinguished guests here today, starting with Natalie Rekow, Senior Logistics Manager, Cost Performance and Freight Payment with Ecolab, and Shannon Vaillancourt, President and Founder with RateLinx. Hey, Natalie, how you doing today?
Good. How is everyone doing today?
Wonderful. Great to have you here today. And Shannon, back by popular demand. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for
Wonderful.
having me again.
You bet. Really appreciate what you are doing, moving mountains over there. And I can't wait to get to the story we have here. I think a lot of folks are going to have some very actionable takeaways. But for starters, Shannon, Natalie, and Mary Kate, we've got a big time basketball tournament, two of them going on. I think already, both of them on the men's and women's side. That's right. The NCAA women's and men's basketball tournaments are upon us. And for our fun warm up question today, I want to ask each of y'all to give us just one winner for either tourney. So who's your pick? Natalie, we're going to start with you.
I think UConn's going to come back and win again for the men's tournament.
I love it. The Mighty Huskies. That's quite a program there. That's a great pick. Shannon, how about you?
I don't know. Probably UConn, but maybe Kentucky.
Okay. All
Hard to
right.
win in March, and Kentucky can outscore everyone. So maybe they'll do it. We'll see.
Those are good picks. I like how you're hedging your bets a little bit too there as well. Mary Kate, who you got?
So for men's, I always pick North Carolina for a lot
Okay.
of reasons, but I have to shout out for the women's side. I need to go Iowa. It's just been so fun to watch.
Okay, those are great picks as well. And I'm gonna play the favorites here with my picks. So South Carolina is my alma mater. The stretch they've been on is just remarkable, incredible athlete, coaches, you name it. So that's my pick, picking winners on that side. And then on men's side, I'm going with Purdue. Don't
Oh,
laugh at
I
me.
like
I'm
that.
going with Purdue. And Shannon's gonna give me a hard time. All right. Well, hey, Mary Kate, Natalie, and Shannon, we're about to get into even a grander game, this global supply chain. Before we do, folks out there listening to us, I see we already have the University of Arizona. I bet this is Shannon C. is my hunch. Picking the University of Arizona because the Final Four is in Phoenix, and Shannon V picked the wrong Wildcat. Folks out there, let us know who your picks are for the women's tournament, for the men's tournament. If you want to give us some basketball analysis, hey, let us know. And hey, Maria, great to see you back with us. Always enjoy your perspective from the beautiful city of Madrid, Spain. It's certainly a global conversation. So, all right. So, Mary Kate, we want to start the conversation here today with Natalie and Shannon. We want to do some level setting. It's so important to get context right. So, Natalie, welcome to your first show here at Supply Chain Now. I know you can do this in your sleep. It's what you do. But tell us, for our audience out there, tell us a little about your background, especially when it comes to supply chain, transportation management, and what brought you to Ecolab's management team.
Yeah, so I started at Ecolab in 2017, and I would say two main things drove me to Ecolab. The first thing being their mission of being a global sustainability leader. And then, second of all, I was looking for career growth at that time, and there was a lot of opportunities here at Ecolab in the supply chain space. I've worked in both finance and supply chain. I actually worked with RateLinx when I worked at Target. I worked at Target for 7 years. And now I'm back at Ecolab, and we also rolled out RateLinx across our domestic areas. And we are now even looking at rolling out RateLinx globally, which is very exciting for our teams here.
Natalie, that is something. And Mary Kate, that's a powerful combo when you add finance to supply chain, right?
I was just thinking that that's such a unique kind of combo and such an area where there's a lot of innovation happening, as we'll explore today further.
That is right. We're going to explore a lot today. And of course, Todd Elliott, yes, you can pick the Mighty Badgers, Wisconsin. So we'll see what happens there. All right. So, Natalie, I think a lot of folks have certainly heard of the Ecolab brand out there, whether it's hand soap in restaurants or plenty of other products and services. Tell us a little more, though, what y'all do at Ecolab.
Yes. So when you look at Ecolab, it goes much beyond just institutional or servicing hotels and restaurants. We actually service 40 industries, anything from dairy farms to mining. So there's definitely a lot of variation here at Ecolab and the products we serve. And then kind of what stands apart for Ecolab is we are a global sustainability leader. And we do a lot of work with our customers to try to reduce water usage. Those are just a few different highlights as to what Ecolab does.
Yes, well said. And I love that. I think that's eye-opening to a lot of folks out there that think they know Ecolab. And I love y'all's work when it comes to saving water. That is such a timely topic that's only going to become much more important in the months and years ahead. All right. So now that we kind of level set with your journey, level set with what Ecolab as a business is, let's talk about your freight mix, your shipments, and some of what y'all have to do there. So let's start with, give us little details around the mix and the volume of the shipments that you're managing for freight.
Yeah, so today we manage various different types of shipments. Anything from about 40% of our volume goes parcel. Another 40% goes less than truckload, and then the remaining 20% is either truckload, intermodal, or bulk. I would say what's unique about our freight is that a lot of it is hazardous chemicals. It's not as ideal from a shipper perspective.
Right.
And so that adds complexity into our rate structures and also our contracts with our carriers. And it makes Ecolab a little bit harder to serve from a carrier perspective. And then we also do a lot of bulk freight, which is kind of a niche. Like liquid deliveries are definitely not something everyone is doing.
Yes. Gosh, you got about 5 more hours today, Natalie, to dive into all of these complexities related to your business. Let's talk about how many invoices your team's processing a year when it comes to freight.
Yeah, about 700,000 invoices is what our volume is today.
Okay. Mary Kate, you ever processed 700,000 freight invoices?
No, but I did sit on the procurement team at Georgia Pacific, so I know how many invoices come through. That is a lot. Wow. And very complex too, as you said. I hadn't thought about all those nuances.
Yes. And Shannon Vaillancourt, really quick, when you think of 700,000 invoices and the hazardous aspect, I mean, is this, you've seen it and done it in your time, not to jump ahead, but this is part of what y'all do, right?
Yeah, just another day. Just another day in the office, not a big deal. But yeah, I mean, Ecolab definitely has some very cool uniqueness to them with respect to where they're shipping.
Yes.
You think about everywhere you go, and now everyone's going to see it because I do. You're going to see Ecolab everywhere. And, you know, they have specific freight that goes to cruise ships. You know, we've talked about that and how they have, you know, rates for that. They have rates for, you know, like she said, they ship to farmers.
Right.
I mean, it's everywhere, man. And I think that's the uniqueness for them for sure.
What a fascinating, I love taking sneak peeks into businesses that we all think we know to get the supply chain story behind it. So Natalie, man, this is great stuff. And by the way, let's see here. Nadeem says it's his favorite customer. How about that? You got fans everywhere around the world. Let us know where you're dialed in from, Nadine, via LinkedIn. And hey, Tomcat says that's a lot of invoices. Natalie, no kid. Tomcat, great to have you here. Our supply chain Shakespeare. All right, so Natalie, let's keep driving a little bit further here. So when your freight auditing was managed in-house, what were some of those issues that you had?
Yeah, to be honest, for me, it's really hard to go back and think about that time. It was
painful.
less than ideal from a lot of perspectives. So a lot of what we did was very manual in nature. We had significant backlogs and invoices. And a lot of our carriers were not willing to follow the processes that we had in place. We also simply couldn't hire enough employees to keep up with the debt backlog. And what was really difficult also from a finance perspective is we really didn't have great data. It was really hard to build reports and spot trends. And that's something that we needed to improve in order to really drive our business forward.
Natalie, man, you're hitting some of our sweet spots. Mary Kate, we've talked about the critical importance of data, and not just any data, but good data. Your quick thoughts, Mary Kate?
Yeah, super interesting that you literally couldn't even find the right number of employees or people that would probably want to work through this or had the time in their job to work on this, right? So finding technology to empower those employees is where you can see kind of some of the return on investment for these things.
Yes. Well said. Well said. Okay. And I like also how you said at the beginning, Natalie and Shannon, I bet it's music to yours. It's too painful to think back.
Yeah.
It's too painful. Natalie, we've all been there at different parts of our journey. All right. So between the sheer volume of invoices that you're auditing and processing, auditing, you're finding a way to fix all the errors that are inevitably come with the process. Did it feel, and not to look back at anything too painful, but it felt pretty insurmountable? Natalie, your thoughts?
Yes, it was definitely something that we needed to rethink and be very strategic about how we were going to approach the solution. Because no matter what actions we were taking on a day-to-day basis, we were getting a lot of escalations from a service perspective about not wanting to service our business. So we kind of had to respond to those fires versus really be thinking strategically. And that's when we decided to engage RateLinx and actually other partners at that time. I personally had worked with RateLinx in the past, so we decided to do a trial with RateLinx and kind of prove out this concept here at Ecolab, as well as a few other suppliers. And we went with RateLinx at that time.
Okay. So, Shannon, I'm coming to you next here, but I think it's really important, Mary Kate, as the big theme as we launch is making it easier for the team, right, to succeed, right? Of course, it goes without saying, take care of the customers, right, and make sure those service levels are protected. But then being a good partner with our suppliers, that's a really important element here as well. Mary Kate, your quick comment.
Yeah, Natalie, as you're talking, I'm thinking you're shifting from being a reactive team to a proactive team. And that's when people start to feel really excited in their jobs and like they're not putting fires out all day long, maybe just a few times a day, right?
Right. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
So Shannon, now that Natalie has really painted quite the picture of their business, where things are, some of where they've come, which we're going to get into more. You've been in the business. We're going to break our 20-year rule here, Mary Kate, because Shannon's been around the block a time or two, over 30 years in global supply chain. So would you say, Shannon, that Ecolab's freight auditing challenges are really unique or more complex than other clients y'all have helped?
I'd say Ecolab is almost a combination of everybody, just because of they ship everywhere. And they do a little bit of everything, but no, there isn't anything that they have that nobody has. Let me put it that way. So it really just came down to us having to do everything that we do just happened to be for Ecolab. And a lot of that's because they do have hazardous, they have non-hazardous, they have things that can't be frozen. So in the winter, all of a sudden you have to worry about that. Whereas, a lot of customers, there's nothing that's going to freeze.
Right.
It's something that is a solid object already that they're shipping. So that's where Ecolab just had a little bit of everything. So if we go across our customer base, I could pick probably 5 or 6 customers, put them together, and it's like, yeah, that's Ecolab. And I think that's where, from our perspective, it wasn't that big of a deal. We've already experienced it elsewhere. So, and then just their scale,
right.
Whether you got 1 or 100, coming down a certain lane with a certain carrier, it's the same level of effort.
Right. Or 700 invoices or 700,000 invoices.
Or a few 100,000.
Right. Yeah. All right. So Mary Kate, I'm hearing we got to set up a field trip to come see Natalie and Ecolab. I bet y'all's facilities are fascinating to walk through. Mary Kate, you game for a field trip?
I'm in. I'm in for that.
Okay. All right. So Shannon, let's keep going, maybe a little more level setting here, right? So for some of the folks out there that may not be involved with carrier invoices and how they may differ from contracted rates, what are some of the reasons that y'all come across that? We come across that?
Oh, it just comes down to the complexity. I mean, the biggest issue that we noticed with Ecolab, and that, really doesn't make them unique, I guess. We notice this with every customer, is that they have rules set up around rating and the prices that they agreed to at the carriers that are very complex. They're layered, and that's where you have to break it all down and make sure that you're following all those rules from a contract perspective. And I think that was a challenge. That's why they were constantly having to put out fires, because they have very, very kind of specific rules around the freight, whether it's chemicals that are shipping or non-chemicals. They have facilities where both come out of that facility. So how do you distinguish the two? And then they had one carrier in particular, and Natalie, you know who I'm talking about, where those rates and rules were very complex, and that was driving a lot of issues at one point, and that's where we had to help on that. I mean, I think we had upwards of 10,000 issues with that carrier that we had to work through. And it's like, how do you do that manually? Think about it. If you had 10,000 invoices for one particular carrier that was causing problems, how do you do that manually?
Right.
You can't. And all 10,000 of them came down to one problem. And that's the approach we took with it. And that's what we're able to do.
Yeah, I'm going to dive a little deeper in what you're sharing there, Shannon. But Mary Kate, it goes back to you really can't, right? And it kind of goes back to what Natalie was saying. You couldn't get enough people. You've got to leverage. We have no other option than to leverage innovative technologies to not only address what we have to address, but to run the business and run it well. Your quick thoughts, Mary Kate.
Yeah, just some of these stats that we're throwing out, just the sheer volume of work, right, requires these technologies to be able to sift through it, make sense of it, and really empower people to feel like they can do something about the issues that are arising, right? Instead of being like, well, it's just always going to be that way. It's just like that, right?
Yes. Well said. And Natalie, really quick, we're going to get into a little bit more of the outcomes in a minute, but I bet as things started to change, Natalie, because that pain back to the prior state, I bet a lot of the team felt like you did, a little bit of that pain. I bet there was a sense of relief and they could be more successful. Right, Natalie? Everyone wants to be successful.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We've actually had a lot less turnover, right, with the recent changes, because people are getting more fulfillment out of the work that they do.
Oh, okay. All right. We got so much more to get to here. I love that.
Yeah. That's
all right. So Shannon, getting back to those 700,000 annual invoices, tell us, if you would, how does RateLinx and technology like RateLinx make that happen so we can still run the business and address all that stuff and, to Natalie's point, be fulfilled in our roles?
Well, it's the technology. Again, we leverage a lot of our software to do the work. So it's funny. We have a person on the audit team that used to work somewhere else, and they audited bills where they worked before. So same job.
Right.
And where they worked, they had a quota. They had to at least audit 90 invoices a day. 90.
Wow.
So you think about, the scenario that we had with Ecolab where they had 10,000. So how many people would you need to do that? Well, we did all 10,000 with a fraction of a person, and that's because of the software. It's kind of mind-boggling to think about how many people we really have auditing.
Yep.
I could count it on one hand. And it's across all of our customers. It's not just that's who we have dedicated to Ecolab. And it's because we have the power of the computer and a lot of AI and machine learning in there. And that's where the computer told us that for these 10,000, here's the real problem. Here's the one problem. You get this one thing solved and poof, these all go away. Mm-hmm. And they're all correct. And that's, I think, the magic that we figured out over here. And that's where I think everywhere else, and that's where even like Natalie said, they'd have to hire so many people because they have to figure it out because they don't have the software, the process, the tools that we do to essentially serve it up on a silver platter and say, oh, look, you have thousands of invoices for either this one carrier or these carriers. And here's the 3 issues really that you have to deal with. So now all of a sudden you're way more efficient.
Oh yeah.
And not only are you more efficient, you're going to be incredibly accurate, and you're also going to be very consistent. So you're not going to have judgment calls where, depending on who's looking at it, they're going to think it's one rule, and then today I kind of feel like maybe it's a different rule.
Right.
And it's like, no, the computer's very consistent, and that's how we do it. There's no other way to do it in my mind.
So I want to circle back to that in just a second, but Mary Kate, one of my favorite things that Shannon just shared was poof, like almost like they've got a magic wand. I mean, that makes me feel, especially as having been that person, as we were talking pre-show, that's done lots of the manual data integrity work that is so tedious, and it really is not the fulfilling work that Natalie is talking about. And if we can throw that over to the technology to do incredibly well at an incredible pace, Mary Kate, that's music to my ears.
Yeah. And I was thinking the same thing, Scott, fulfillment, right? If I'm, my job every day is to meet a quota of 90 invoices, and I feel like, I'm not really adding to the bigger picture, or I feel like there could be a better way to use technology. I'm going to be much more fulfilled partnering with a company like RateLinx, right? Where I feel like, hey, I'm getting through a lot. I'm really making a difference in my company, right?
Yes. Well said, Mary Kate. Completely agree. Okay, Natalie, I'm about to come back to you as we get into more of the outcomes and whatnot. But Shannon, before I do, and if we can keep the right altitude, because I can tell you, as much as I would have loved to be a technologist and to be able to code and to be an AI scientist, unfortunately, that was not what I was gifted with. So if you could explain a little bit further in terms of how RateLinx leverages AI and machine learning to do what you were talking about, can you share another detail or two with our audience?
Well, when you're looking at an invoice, if you've ever had the pleasure of auditing a freight invoice, which I have, and that's why I wrote the software, because it is actually incredibly painful and time consuming to do it. Really what it comes down to is matching it up to the rates and then figuring out which one of the rules is wrong.
Right.
And then categorizing it. That's what it comes down to. I mean, if we take truckload, for example, and you look at a freight invoice on truckload, you could, if we sat here and we're like, okay, what could be wrong? Well, there's only a few things.
Right.
It's the mileage. They had the wrong mileage from point A to point B. The cost per mile is wrong. An accessorial is wrong. Or the fuel surcharge is wrong. There's nothing else. Mm-hmm. That's it. So why are we digging into this too much? Why am I doing the math on the miles times the cost per mile? I mean, that's literally what we would see people do, where invoice comes in, says it's 1,000 miles, $2.50 per mile. And they're like 2,500, and they pull out the calculator and they're like, hang on. Yeah, it's 2,500. It's like, yeah, no kidding. That's how third grade math taught me it worked. So that's where we take all that out of the mix. And it's like, instead we're leveraging our people to do what the people need to do, which is essentially have the conversation with either our customer or our carrier or the carriers to get this resolved and make sure we all get on the same page, because we want it fixed as much as everybody else does. That way the customer is paying their carriers on time, getting the service they want. The carriers are getting paid for their time and their service. And then they love that customer and they like us as well, which is always a nice benefit. So that's really all the software does, is it takes all that out of the person's hands and essentially says, here's what you need to go do.
Love it. Natalie, I'm imagining that Coca-Cola commercial way back in the day where it's like perfect harmony once we get it all right and the whole ecosystem sings together. Natalie, is that almost what it's like?
Not quite, but
Not quite. All right, not quite. But hey, so before I get back to some questions for you, Natalie, Tomcat is illustrating the point for us. Incredibly painful. Very accurate description of auditing freight invoices. So why would we want to make our team members do anything that was incredibly painful? There's a better way. All right. So Natalie, once, as Shannon was describing it, AI, machine learning, the technology finds these differences between the contractor rates and the accessorials. I can never say that word right. Who disputes the invoice with the carrier, Natalie?
Yeah, so RateLinx takes all of that work from the client, right? So in the past, we were disputing in a system that we had, but now RateLinx's carrier resolution team does all of that for us.
Really?
And they may have questions from us if the carrier disagrees, but typically they're working directly with our carriers and there's not a lot of client intervention needed.
Okay. So Mary Kate, what I'm hearing there, I don't know if you heard this, but what I'm hearing is they're taking friction out off the team members' plates, out of the operation. Mary Kate, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's just putting, all of this efficiency to work for people, right? And making their jobs a little bit easier for once.
Oh, amen. All right. So Natalie, we are already probably halfway through the show, and I bet a lot of our listeners out there and viewers out there are already kind of putting the whole outcome picture together, right? Because just from a sheer cultural and from a employee experience perspective, man, it is like a whole different picture. But what else, when you think of the return on investment or the real positive business outcomes beyond what we've talked about from using RateLinx's freight audit and pay solution and the carrier resolution services, what else would you add to that whole equation of the return?
Yeah, so one of our biggest returns has been our first pass yield. So essentially in the past, right, we were really behind on our freight payment and we were having to touch a large percentage of our invoices. And now we're well above our target of 95%. So they're 98% of our invoices, neither RateLinx nor our team has to touch in any way. Driven by their ability to automate and also learn our business and those rules.
All right. So Natalie, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to also add that in the past, we got a lot of escalations from our carriers and we get like no noise from a freight payment perspective. We actually get the opposite, right? Where they tell us how far we've come and how we're one of the best companies in this space today.
Man, we asked and you delivered, Natalie. I want to go back to this 98% touchless. A lot of folks may have not heard first pass yield before, and I want to make sure they take away what you're sharing there because that's big. Can you explain first pass yield one more time and how important that figure is?
Yeah. So what our goal is, right, is to pass an invoice through with no one touching it. So first pass yield is just the percentages of invoices that no one has to touch, that just pass right through the RateLinx system and go through for payment.
Okay, man. 98%. Love that. All right. I got a couple more questions for everyone here, but Nadeem, Shannon's been doing, Shannon and the whole RateLinx team's been doing it for a while. They've got lots of other customers. Maybe we can touch on that maybe towards the end of the show, or maybe you get a cup of coffee, or maybe hit the white golf ball around with Shannon Vaillancourt after today's session. All right. So let's talk about invoice aging, paying invoices within terms. How has this work helped impact that, Natalie?
Yeah, I would say that from a carrier perspective, we have very limited aging. And when we do have aging, it's typically driven by something that is not in our control. Like either we didn't get the invoices or they weren't submitted to the right place. And the RateLinx software allows us to really get to those issues quite quickly, whereas our previous tools, it was difficult to pull the reporting and really get to the root cause of the issue.
Mary Kate, it's important folks get paid. Carriers want to get paid, right? That's how you get the service levels. That's one of the ways we get service levels we're after. Mary Kate, your quick thoughts. Again, back for me, it's back to not only the incredible improvement and better days, but taking friction out. Your thoughts, Mary Kate?
Yeah, I love, Natalie, when you said the carriers talk about how you are one of the best companies in the space now. I mean, that's, huge for them and for you guys and for all the people that work with one another in your organizations. I think that's a really great outcome.
That's right. Well said. We got to love on our carriers out there. I'll tell you what, Shannon, let's switch gears here. Invoice discrepancies that we were talking about. Some folks will say if they're too small, we shouldn't worry about them. And they use rate tolerances instead of real exhaustive freight auditing. Your thoughts, Shannon?
Oh, we love the fact that people do that because that's what allows us to come in and do what we do. So we celebrate the fact that people have rate tolerances. We don't, and it freaks people out. We audit down to the penny. And we do that because, again, the computer does it. Again, going back to if you've ever had the pleasure of auditing a freight invoice, it is incredibly painful. So go back to, the person that we have here who used to work somewhere else. They did 90 in a day. So 8 hours, 90 invoices. You can figure out the cost per invoice. Right. That's what people are doing. And they're like, for $10, it's not worth it. For $20, $15, it's just not worth it. Just let it go. And, you think about, when you go to the grocery store tonight, let's say you're checking out and you're like, that's close enough. Right. I don't know. It's within about $5 every item.
Right.
That you're buying. That's close enough. Right. Because it's not worth it for you to watch it as they scan everything. Is it? And it's like freight's the only thing that I've ever experienced in my entire life that it's like, it's horseshoes and hand grenades.
Yes.
It's horseshoes, hand grenades, and freight bills is how you got to think about it now. Just like, there's 3 sure things in life, not 2, death, taxes, and a rate change.
Right.
And it's like, so these are the things I wasn't taught.
Right.
But then again, I grew up in the inner city. Chicago. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
We got to talk more about those Bears and Packers teams of yore, but we'll save that for the next show.
The Bears team we can talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait a minute.
Just messing. Hey, before I go back to Natalie, Mary Kate, that's not good enough. That shouldn't be in our lexicon. If we've got technology that we can bring into the operation that eliminates all that really, just let's call it what it is, waste, right?
Right.
Waste of dollars, waste of employee hours. Your quick thoughts, Mary Kate.
Yeah, I just love the efficiency that this provides, and it really, allows you to not waste money in unnecessary areas, save the money for other things that you need, right? And when you set a rule, having technology that can really keep to that, the numbers are just adding up in my head, based on everything we've talked about today. You can see quickly how that becomes a huge savings long term, short term too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just want to throw out there, if when I'm bebopping down through my local grocery and I get to the cashier's lane, although it's all self-checkout these days, which I love, but $5 per item. No, that's not acceptable, right?
Yeah.
Shannon, that's a great analogy.
When you think about Ecolab's challenge that she talked about at the beginning, that Natalie said they couldn't hire enough people.
Yeah.
So if there's 700,000 invoices a year, let's say that they figure $1, that's $700,000 a year. Maybe
Yes.
they're off by $5 on average.
Mhm.
So now you start looking at how many people could you hire to offset it. I mean, this is the challenge that everybody runs into. That's why they do it. It is a business decision that they have to make.
Yes.
And that's where, again, with us, you don't have to worry about that. There is a much better way to do this.
Yeah,
Love
and that's a painful business decision to make, right? Because it's not a fun one, but if you have RateLinx, right, it becomes, hey, this is pretty cool, right? We can have this savings and we can be more efficient.
Really cool. In my book, I need to bring RateLinx in and start auditing my kids' expenses and some of those invoices we get. All right.
The problem with your kids' expenses is your money is no object to them.
Yeah, right.
So that's futile.
That's right. All right. So Natalie, you've painted a clear picture, but I'm going to ask this question anyway, because there might be something that you haven't shared yet. But all this automation, this artificial intelligence, machine learning, all the tech we're talking about, you've already spoken to just how more fulfilling that your team members that your team members got out of each day. But what else when it talks about reducing or eliminating any work for your transportation team? Anything else that we didn't touch on?
Yeah, so I would just add on that in addition to our team auditing the invoices and getting all that time back, there were a lot of other teams from procurement to our leadership team who had to get involved in a lot more discussions with our carriers when they weren't getting paid. So when we think about it now, those discussions can be turned to what really matters, and that's how do we service our customers better in the future, and work better with our carriers on innovation and other things versus solving the tactical freight payment issues that we had.
Natalie, I love that call out. And Mary Kate, one of my favorite parts of my journey has been doing value stream mapping with cross-functional teams across big and small organizations. And what Natalie just touched on there is a lot of times in our functional silos that, not saying Ecolab, but other out there we know exist, sometimes you don't even understand the impact upstream and downstream. But if you heard Natalie talk about all the different teams that had to get involved, right? Mary Kate, that's like a force multiplier aspect of why we got to do this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's allowing the teams to take back time to be strategic and not tactical.
Right. And not just a transportation team, right?
Right.
Other teams within the organization. All right, Shannon, we have talked about this massive tidal wave amount of data that is digitized from the hundreds of thousands of freight invoices. But besides paying the right contracted rates, how else is the freight invoice and audit data leveraged?
Well, it definitely gives Ecolab now a solid foundation that they leverage for procurement. So when they are getting new rates, you think about other companies with rate tolerances, they're putting in new rates and they're comparing it to what they paid before. And what they paid before was, had rate tolerances in it. So you're doing incomplete comparisons. Now you can compare it accurately. And it's also giving them some other intelligence that they want. I mean, there's a lot of little analytics that we do for Ecolab so they can see, are they using the primary carrier for a lane? Is there any optimization capabilities or opportunities out there based on their rates? Again, all these invoices are rolling through. We have all of their rates loaded for every carrier in the system. And that's where they're taking advantage of all that. I mean, that's exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Well said. And Natalie, when you run a better business and your invoices are audited in record time, you're paying the right balances within terms, you can leverage all of that into better contracts and rates, which Shannon's kind of speaking to, right?
Yes, definitely.
And why not pull that lever, all 17 of those levers, right? So Shannon, these returns, the return on investment, the outcomes from the intangible to the tangible, you're seeing this, I'm assuming, these same returns with other customers y'all have, right?
Oh yeah, no, we see lots of different numbers. Everybody's a little unique in how they're set up, but I mean, based on not only headcount, whether it's reduction or prevention, there's savings there, and then just the hard dollar savings. If they did have a rate tolerance in place, that's probably the easiest one to look at, where anybody who does have a rate tolerance, you can just look at it and see that, right there, there's savings right across the top. So for us, it's not hard to justify our cost that we have out there. So you'll easily see, I don't know, 5 to 20%. Everybody's different though.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mary Kate, we should have no tolerance for rate tolerances is kind of one of the big takeaways here, right?
That. Yeah, I love that. And I just, I love a good savings like this, right? Where you can save in an area that, you have to spend money in, right, to do business. But if you kind of use these technologies, innovate a little bit, think about it a little differently, these savings are going to continue to compound in a lot of different ways. So this makes my budget heart so happy.
It's so true. And folks, if you can't tell, one of the key takeaways here is if your organization's using rate tolerances, you might want to give Shannon a ring, because there's clearly a better way that your team will appreciate, the bottom line will appreciate, your carriers will appreciate, which we're going to touch on next, Shannon. Because that's one of my favorite parts of Natalie's message here today, and what they're leading in Ecolab is they're being better. The whole ecosystem is winning.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shannon, when clients use RateLinx's dispute resolution services, how does that change, improve the relationship between the shipper and the carrier?
Oh, it makes a huge difference, because the approach we take is to fix it. That's why, we have the 98% first pass yield. The only way you get to that number is you have to fix the problem. And that's what the carriers want. They don't want us to just short pay an invoice,
right,
and be done with it. So we actually have a lot of carriers who we hear from as well that recommend us to their other customers, because we make it easy for everybody. Not only are we, working with our customers, we're beholden to our customer, but the carrier is a big piece in that equation, and we have to make sure that we're communicating correctly to them, and that we're following all the rules, and everybody's following the rules. And that's where we're able to get the huge savings, not only from a time perspective, but cost perspective, because, at the end of the day, the freight invoice just needs to get paid at the contracted amount.
Yes.
That's what the carrier expected. That's what the customer expects. So, we make it as easy as possible for them and point it out. I mean, we've actually I remember I had a call once with a carrier where I said, hey, do you mind if I send you some examples so we can figure out what's wrong, with the rates that you're calculating? And I remember the woman is like, oh my God, if you could help me with the rest of these customers, this would be great, because we can never get to the bottom of it. And sure enough, next call we have with 9 examples, we figured it out. And then poof, it's fixed. So it's like, that's just how we work with them. And then that's what increases your first pass yield. You can't have issues and have a high first pass yield. You have to solve it. And then when the rates change, you got to go through that process again.
Yes.
Because maybe somebody loaded something wrong. You just never know.
Shannon, I've had lots of conversations with you dating back to our first in-person in beautiful Arizona at the DEMSCA conference. And I never knew you were such a magician. The whole poof thing. I mean, it makes sense now, but really, why not? The question is not why, it is why not. Natalie, before I get Mary Kate the comment on Shannon's certified magician status, talk about those carrier relationships and how y'all have been able to improve and leverage those, and next steps to continue to improve your freight auditing. Your thoughts, Natalie?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest improvement is we're now seen as a carrier of choice in the freight payment space. So no longer is freight payment a topic within our carrier meetings or calls. So we're able to really leverage those meetings to drive better business outcomes in the future versus working on tactical freight payment. And then the last thing that our team has noticed is we're really able to understand where we are against the market and really maintain our rates against market trends, because no longer do we have large open aging to the point where they have to add those balances into their future rates. They can really take that out knowing that we're going to pay in a timely manner.
Ooh, that is music to my ears. I'm telling you, it's a Coca-Cola commercial from the 70s. And carriers get beat up by a lot of folks out there in the industry. And I love the great impact that it is for them, making them whole, making their, taking friction out of their operation and making their team members' day easier. Natalie, I love this story here. Mary Kate, now we're going to get your patented key takeaway in a few minutes. But Mary Kate, on that carrier impact, what a beautiful story. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I love that. No one wants to be a bad partner, right? Or be in a bad partnership or feel like you're treating your partner wrong. And I think, like Natalie has highlighted, being able to get these small, well, they're large issues, but being able to kind of take care of these issues allows you to focus on the bigger picture and have a true partnership, which I just love to hear that.
Completely agree. Again, we've been using this ecosystem word for years, ever since my biology days back in high school. It's become kind of cliche these days, but in this story here, this is anything but cliche, because truly the ecosystem, the team members inside the four walls, outside the four walls, their days are getting easier. And that's got to be one of the North Stars of what we have to do, what we're charged with as business leaders. So I love that. So Natalie, when it boils all down, right? And I've got some visuals I'm going to share with our audience in just a minute, but when you boil it all down and you get to the bottom line reasons that y'all are very thankful you decided to rethink how Ecolab processed its freight invoices, all 700,000 of them, and how you audited them, what does it all boil down to?
Yeah, I would say there's really a few different key things here. So the first one being that we were able to significantly reduce our internal workload and even cut labor across our organization. We also were able to improve and process our invoices quicker and kind of get to the point where we can almost nearly eliminate aging. And then, like Shannon mentioned, we did have higher rate tolerances. We were able to nearly, if not fully, eliminate those with RateLinx. And then lastly, we were able to leverage our financial data and truly understand our spend. Whereas in the past, we didn't really have the tools or ability to do that in a strategic way.
Well said, Natalie. Man, that's music to my ears. So I don't know about y'all. I'm a visual learner, and I think we got some graphics that we're going to walk through that basically reinforces the so what factor that Natalie just addressed. And we're going to start with the first one, up to 20% cost avoidance on freight spend. How about that? Number two, significantly cut internal audit labor hours. Thirdly, auditing freight invoices. How about this? 92 times faster, only with technology, folks. Fourthly, eliminating these rate tolerances and past due invoices. Folks, if you use rate tolerances, you better give Shannon and the team a call. And finally, finding new cost savings opportunities, which is so important, whether you're dealing with freight or other components of global business, global supply chain. So good stuff there, Natalie. All right. So we got some resources we're going to share. We're going to make sure folks know how to connect with Shannon and Natalie. But I'm going to move this question up, Mary Kate, because I can't wait to hear of what we've covered in the last 50 minutes, not including these winners. Let's see here. Natalie picked UConn. Shannon picked UConn, Kentucky. You picked UNC. Not touching on that. But what's one of your favorite things that Natalie and Shannon touched on today that folks got to take away from this conversation front and center?
I just love how we talked about in the beginning how complicated Ecolab is, right, in terms of freight and how high their freight spend is. yet they still were able to drive all of these results. So this just made me like, I have already got a few people that I really want to connect Shannon with after this. This just made me think it's truly possible across all industries, right? No matter, probably the more complicated, the better. You could probably find even more savings.
Well said. Absolutely. And I bet Shannon and the whole team would welcome those conversations.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we love big and the most complex possible. That's what we're built for.
Love that. Okay. And I also really enjoy an hour. Hour sounds like a long time, but there's so much more, I bet, in y'all's long-standing partnership, as Natalie was sharing on the front end, through various organizations. So we'll have to dive deeper in the next episode. Natalie, let's make sure. I bet folks are going to want to pick your brain a little bit further. Maybe they want you to come in, give a keynote or something, or find a way to maybe do business with y'all, or learn a little bit more of what you shared here today. How can folks connect with you and the Ecolab team?
I would say the best way to connect with me is through LinkedIn. And I'm happy to help you answer any questions that you might have or come speak with you further.
Wonderful. And maybe they want to become a Ecolab customer. Folks, reach out to Natalie and the team. What a great, interesting company to spotlight and work through here today, especially from a supply chain standpoint. Shannon, on the move, moving mountains. We've enjoyed the stories we've covered here today, going back years. How can folks connect with you, Shannon, and the RateLinx team?
You can always go to the website, www.ratelinx.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn.
It's just that easy.
Yep.
Right?
And then poof.
Right on time. Right on time. Also, Michael Scott from The Office, if folks will get that reference. RateLinx.com. We dropped that link out there. Hey, Bill Stankiewicz from the great city of Savannah. Great group here, Scott. Follow Bill. Bill's a great good dude down in the Savannah, Georgia logistics mecca that it is. We got some resources really quick, though. Before y'all take off, I want to share, as I mentioned, I'm a visual learner, folks. We got 2 resources here. I want to start with, I think we have really, there's a lot more to this story, but I think we've done a good job highlighting some of the key takeaways in the last hour. But if folks, if you want to learn more, you can download the case study from our friends at RateLinx. We're dropping that link in the chat. And here's something cool. How about coming out to the 2nd annual RateLinx Insight Conference, October 15th through the 16th, 2024, just a few months down the road in Scottsdale, Arizona. Shannon, what is the temperature of Scottsdale in October, roughly?
Perfect.
That is very well quantified,
Sunny
my friend.
and perfect.
Yes.
Love it.
I would say.
Well, Natalie, I hope to see you there. I'm going to try to make it out this year. They got some great speakers, so maybe we can connect over a coffee or an adult beverage. You never know. I bet there'll be a few of those out there, Shannon, don't you think?
Yes.
All right. We can get that out, maybe. Wonderful. Natalie Rekow with Ecolab. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. Shannon Vaillancourt, always a pleasure. You and the RateLinx team, appreciate what you are doing out there, because again, that's close enough, ain't good enough out in global supply chain. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
You bet. Mary Kate, love, enjoy. I love the outcomes, the real practical outcomes.
Yes.
And I'm not just talking, I love the bottom line and how the operation and organization is greatly improved. But my favorite part, you know me, is the impact it has on your people, and you make your days more rewarding and fulfilling and successful. That's a big part of the name of the game, right?
Yeah, key. And, Natalie's seeing less turnover too, right? That's huge.
Yes, that is right. Okay, folks. Hey, thanks for being here. I know we couldn't hit everybody's comment and question here today. We dropped the links for all those resources in the chat. Make sure you connect with Natalie and Shannon out there. There's a lot more goodness to the great things they're doing in the industry. Hey, make sure you connect with Mary Kate Love. National Supply Chain Day is right around the corner, April 29th. Be sure to download the case study and check out RateLinx's conference coming up in the perfect weather, as Shannon said, in October in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. And whatever you do, take one thing of all the brilliance that Shannon and Natalie and Mary Kate brought here today. Take one thing and Do something different. Your teams will appreciate it. They'll love you for doing it. And on behalf of our entire team here at Supply Chain Now, Scott Luton challenging you to do good, to get forward, and to be the change. We'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.